I ended up using the impact wrench on that, beating on it for a while. Again, it slips right off. This is the caliper that was leaking, and looking at this caliper versus the front caliper, those seals in there look different, and it looks like this may actually have been a replacement caliper. It might have been sleeved, but we will know for sure on that whenever we rebuild the calipers. One of the things that you have to be careful with whenever you take the rotor off, especially on the rears on these cars, is run out. And these things, when they were put on at the factory, they were put together and then machined so that they ran true. So if you take the rotor off, what you don't want to do is turn it and put it on the studs in a different orientation than what it was, because you can screw up the run out. So to guarantee that I can put them back the same way, I'm going to make myself two little reference marks in the hub and on the rotor, so that I can line those up and put them back on, get it back in the same orientation. Just a tiny little groove in each of them. That way I know that when I put it back, I've got it the same way. Just enough to tell. Okay, I tried to just pull that off, and it didn't come right off, so I'm betting that it's going to be rusted on. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to put some blaster in each of these rivet areas and around each of the studs. Hopefully it will loosen that up and help it to come off when I come back to it later. And what I will do when I come back to it later, since gravity's doing its thing and it's running this way, I'm going to turn this 180 degrees and then put more blaster on so that it runs down the other way. And hopefully when I go to take it off, a couple taps with the red blow hammer and it'll be off. Okay, in order to adjust the brake, the emergency brake or parking brake, these holes have to be lined up approximately in this orientation, because what you're really trying to do when you adjust the brake is, see this little star wheel here? See if we can get some light on it. There's a little star wheel right here. There you go. You can see the notches on it. What you're doing is reaching in through that hole with a screwdriver and either pushing it, forward or back in order to tighten up that emergency brake or loosen it. So that's what those things are for. I'm going to try next, I think, to take off the emergency brake cable, which this is very rigid, this cable right here. I'm going to have to take this bracket off. Looks like that bracket is held on with 1/2-inch bolts. So I'm going to take those off both sides, and that will give me some leeway here. This thing is designed so that when you pull this Mickey Mouse ear clip off, you pull the cable out of that bracket. And in order to do that, you've got to come over here and there's a bracket here towards the front of the trailing arm where the hub attaches to it, or the spindle. You need to get it out of that bracket, and most importantly, you need to get this ball out of this bracket here. What there is a notch in the bracket, which I believe is right here, right in the front, and it's wide enough for the cable to come out, but then the ball holds into the bracket, and that's what pulls on your emergency brake, your parking brake, to expand it and put pressure on the inside of the rotor here. This is where those shoes would rub against in order to lock up the brake so that the car doesn't drift away when you park it. What I did on that rotor, on the left one, it's not as visible here as I'd like it to be, but I added a second notch. There's one here and one here. It is visible on the rotor, it's just not visible from the camera. So I added those notches so that I can tell that that's the left rotor, because it wouldn't do me much good to line up the left rotor with the right one, the right hub, whenever I'm going to put them back on. So it's important that you put them back on. This is the little ball on the cable that attaches the parking brake cable to the parking brake lever. I'm going to try to pull that out. I'm going to grip it with a pair of vice grips. With those vice grips really tight. Okay, and you just wiggle it out of that little bracket. Almost there. I had a pair of needle nose vice grips, because that's my problem. I can't get these over far enough and get the cables wiggling, but I can't get it actually to come out. There it is. So now that that's off, next thing I'll address is the little Mickey Mouse ear clip. I don't know if I can get a video on it from this angle. Nope, gotta move the camera. There it is right there, attached to the clip on the, or the bracket on the trailing arm. Not at the best angle for this, because I'm trying to make the camera have a good angle, but there it is. And now once I disconnect the bracket over here, that it's bolted into with 2 1/2-inch bolts. I'm going to go after this bracket that holds the emergency brake on. I don't know if you could tell from the video, but both of these nuts are spinning freely, but they're not loosening. So I'm going to have to address that by going under the vehicle and taking a clip off, and I'll show you that. But before I go there, here is something else. You recall we pulled that ball and cable out of there. There's another clip further on down that this cable has to come out of. Okay, now I don't know if that was right what I did there, whether this is the thing that keeps that spring from going through that bracket there, because the spring slides freely on the cable, and it's not really big enough, if I can find the darn thing, it's not really big enough to be retained by that clip there. Hard to get the light on there. Okay, there's the clip. I'm wondering if there isn't a piece of hardware that goes on this end of the spring to keep it from going through that bracket. But at any rate, that's what was needing to be disconnected there. The other thing is we need to pull this completely out of this bracket. It comes partway through, and then it can go through this opening when you get to just the cable. But in order to do that, this thing is so stiff, we need to get it disconnected on the bottom side, and hopefully that'll give us a little more leeway with it. Before I go under, just for grins, I put a pair of gloves on so I don't tear my hands up. See if I can pull this thing through. Doesn't want to come. It seems like I need that extra play by loosening the other end. We're going to try that next. Okay, there's the clip under there. I'm just going to catch one of those ears with a screwdriver and tap it up. Doesn't want to come. Try to tap with a dead blow hammer. Finally coming. And grab it from the top now and pry it up with the screwdriver. Now hopefully I can wiggle this one out now. I've got a little bit of play on both sides. There you go. Went between the fitting and the rubber seal. Okay, now that that side's off and I have room to work with, the other one came off very easily. So that emergency brake cable is off on the driver's side. And I guess the next thing is to take and do the same struggles on the passenger side and get the whole thing off. I think you really do need to get all of these clips off before you can get the cable off, because I took this one off and I was able to get the one on the cross member off, but because these are connected, I can't get that one off. So I'm going to have to take the rotor off and disconnect those. Trying to see, you might be able to get those off without taking the rotor off, if you're not going to take it off and they're riveted on. So it's worth a shot, but at least you've seen the technique of moving that ball out of the bracket and going from there. Just trying to be helpful to anybody that might not be planning on taking their rotors off of the back. I'm going to try something here. What I've got is a brass drift and my good old dead blow hammer, and I'm going to put the back brass strip on that ball and see if I can knock the cable out of that bracket. Almost looks like it wants to come, but not quite. I was originally trying to get a little screwdriver behind it and pry it out. Maybe it needs the combination of those two, the screwdriver to keep the ball out of from hitting the bracket itself, and the drift to knock it out. It is so close to coming out. Not quite making it. Thing is so close. Worked. Just lifted the spring up from that bracket. I don't know if I have it in the picture there, but I lifted the spring up on the back side. I've already put in the brake caliper bolt back there, and now it's in my way. And they have to take that out to get it out, but now that that is disconnected, it pulls out the back easily. The way this was on there, the bracket fit here between these things and that. So, and again on this side, there's nothing there. Oh yes there is. Oh yes there is. There's a nylon bracket in there. Or a nylon little clip. I'm gonna go see if I can get a close-up of it. Camera doesn't want to focus on it. I have to take the zoom off and bring the camera closer. Okay, that little nylon piece in there is what keeps the spring from popping through this bracket. That thing isn't on the other side, so I'm going to have to see if I can get one of those, but that's what it is. Spring is on the opposite side of it. The cable runs out this side, hooks in here. This is where the sheathed cable goes over to the cross member. But now the emergency brake cable is completely off.